database and make it filterable in your own database. So that one is free for you to use, and you can actually use that information to build things on top, and that's something that I don't know anybody else offering as well. So that's the GeoPlanet data set. And when we have this data set, we can build things that make a lot of sense. For example, the Placemaker system. Placemaker is an API that allows you to send text to it, and it finds locations in that text. So in YQL, there's of course a Placemaker table as well. So if I go to YQL console again, which is open somewhere, there you go, and I go to Placemaker, I actually can say select star from Placemaker where document content is they followed him to deepest Africa and found him in Timbuktu, and document type is text plain, and it will find Africa as a continent, and it will find Timbuktu as a city, and it finds you the references where in that text that information is as well. So you can take that to turn any text, any content management system, any blog post into a map. And I've done this little script called addmap.js, which you can just put into any document. So you see this text here right now. Currently I'm on a working trip in Sunnyvale. I came from San Francisco to San Jose, and then I go to Palo Alto. And you saw when it finished loading, it actually turned all these links into links to Google Maps and showed you a Google map under it and gave you Palo Alto, San Jose, Sunnyvale, San Francisco. So I can do that with any text on the web by just running it through the Placemaker API and the YQL table. So this is like the JavaScript is on GitHub here, and all you have to do is put it in the page, put an API key of Google in there, and then you look at the source code of that one. It's not much code to turn any text into a map, and this is possible because of the API of Google, and possible because of YQL, and we have that data set in the system already because it's part of YQL. So that is a very interesting API to actually play with data sources. So Placemaker is a post API, so a lot of people have complaints because it's hard to use. So I thought, okay, how about we make it easier? So there's an interface called Placemaker. Pagemaker, sorry about this. This one is on top of Placemaker, and again I used the YQL table and I used a bit of YUI, which is the last one I'm going to cover later on, that actually allows you to turn any text into a map. So I can say, get me the content of my home page. So just get the HTML of the code and then actually find the locations in there. And I found the locations in there and give it back to you as a table that you can sort and clear out. So there's actually, this is all fine. Europe might be a bit big, so I get rid of Europe. And then I say generate, and it generates a map for me that actually, as a code, I can copy and paste here into your systems. So this is what Placemaker allows you to do, and I just put the interface on top to make it to turn it into a web. And I'm writing renderers for Google Maps and for Bing Maps as well right now, so you can later on use that to turn any interface into a map in like 2 simple steps. The source code of that is actually on GitHub as well, so if you want to host the GeoMaker yourself, you can do that. And it actually finds all kind of like really interesting locations. So if I take, for example, the BBC website, and find locations in there, we'll probably find a lot more locations for you. And yeah, it's like, Jesus, that's going on here. Asia Pacific, too big. You can sort the table by like what type it is. So normally you want to get rid of the continents. And you have here colloquial terms, for example, countries, states, suburbs, supername is probably useless as well. And then I generate that, and I actually have a table from that, and I basically have the locations in there. And that's very important to give people that thing, that like we have 2 countries next to each other, and people don't know that. but if you show a map next to it, you can easily do that. So this is our geo APIs that you can download the geo data set. You can use the Placemaker system to turn any text into a lookup table, and we have a lot of information in there. So there's like 5 or 6 different geo APIs, which confuse the hell out of me as well, because when I have to use them, it's just not fun. So another thing, and we're sending out links about this later on, is actually YQL Geo. YQL Geo is a simple JavaScript library that you can put into your page, and my local host is almost not open at the moment, so that's not working. There we go. And that one is the whole source code of that table, of that library, because in it I'm actually using YQL and just do a JavaScript script generation to put it there. So if you try that one out, and that's one on the demo side there, you can do all kind of things that you want to have. So it uses, under the hood, it uses Placemaker, GeoPlanet, JSON IP, W3C geolocation, and Flickr places. So what I can do with this, with one single JavaScript function, YQLGeo.get, I can actually turn a text, in this case Paris, France, into a location, and it finds the latitude and longitude of Paris, France, and all the other information you saw in the GeoPlanet Explorer earlier. You can give it a latent long, either as an array or as a number of floats, and it will find the location for you. You can point at a URL at it. So these are all the conferences I've spoken at last year. So these are all the locations that it found on my blog here for me. You can give an IP number in case you want to find out where your users are from. So the IP number of 217 something is actually in Castleberry, but that time's out right now for some reason. And you can find the user. So you can basically say, I want to have the user. It asks the user for their location. If the location is given, then it gives me the location back. And if the user says, I don't give you my location with the browser, it falls back to the IP lookup that we had before, so you will always find a location between the two people. And yeah, this is basically an open source library using all the geo systems that you can have to solve all the geo problems that you have. And yeah, it's 10 lines of code, and it actually is running on YQL, so it's actually really, really fast because all of the computation happens on the YQL server. Good. The last thing I want to talk about, which is the hugest thing we have, is YUI. Is anybody here using YUI already? Good. So YUI is the Yahoo User Interface Library, which is exactly what we use to build our websites. It's also used by lots of other companies. So to learn about YUI, the best thing is to go to developer.yahoo.com/YUI and find everything that you need to know about it there. So the YUI library is it's not only a JavaScript library. People always ask, what's the difference between YUI and jQuery? jQuery is a JavaScript library that allows you to make easy JavaScript in browsers. YUI is a CSS framework, a JavaScript library, and a widget framework all in one. So we have, you can build anything that is actually visible on the Yahoo homepage with YUI. And we give it out for you at BSD license for free, so you can actually try build the things yourself. So you have also PHP loader, compressors. YSlow was coming out of YUI originally, so all the information comes out there. So if you go to the YUI homepage, you will find that all of the things are available for you as demos. So you have the same things. You have CSS controls. You have a CSS reset to stop the display of browsers and just start with a blank state. You have CSS fonts, which actually allows you to write a typography for websites that is predictable across all the browsers, because we tested across all the browsers and fixed their problems for you. And we got CSS grids for building CSS layouts that work across all the browsers that we support as well. What browsers do we support? We have this GBS grid called Graded Browser Support. Which I don't have in my awesome bar anymore. There you go. So this one are the browsers that we support as A grade, B grade, and C grade. So all the browsers we test for is Safari 5, Chrome the latest, Firefox 4, Firefox 3.6, IE9, 8, 6, 7, and 6 on Windows XP, Windows 7, Macintosh, iOS, and Android. So these are all the browsers that we say YUI will work on perfectly. And we test for that because we have to do it ourselves. And that way you can actually use YUI on these without having to do a lot of testing yourself. So we have the DOM collection and we have event utility. That's basically what jQuery comes up with as well. And then we have animation, browser history management in case you have AJAX calls and you want to hit the back button and not break your application. A connection manager that does all the AJAX connectivity or posting to web services for you. Cookie utility to make cookies work. Data source utility to have a data source turn into a table. Drag and drop interfaces. Element utility allows you to have an easy access to the document. Get utilities, loading JSON objects. Image loader is a way to make a website faster by not loading all the images up at once, but only when they come into the viewport of the page. So you don't load the images, but only when the user scrolls through them, which makes a lot more sense because you don't have the traffic for all the images loading. You've got a resize utility, you've got a selector utility, and storage, which uses HTML5 storage, style sheets, and so on and so forth. And with all of these things, we build these widgets like autocomplete, button, calendar, carousel, charts, color picker, a data table, an image cropper, layout manager, menu, paginator, and so on and so forth. If you try one of these out, you basically can click on them, and you have a control sheet that actually gives you a quick look if you want to print them out. But the main thing you would probably do is like just click the examples. So here's a step-by-step explanation how to use the menu one by one. And if you look at the example page, you will actually have a basic menu for markup, and that one turns a. You can click Show Menu here, and it will show you that menu that actually works right now. And if you click it again, it hides it again. You can have a group menu items with titles from markup, and you can show that menu, and you can try them out. So these are all the right-click menus and the menus you see in Yahoo Mail, for example. And they've been tested across the browsers, and they've also been tested with assistive technology. So blind users can actually find these menus. Whereas a lot of things written by people that don't know about accessibility at all are just wonderful menus, but they don't work for half the people and don't fall back to something useful when you have a BlackBerry or something like that. This is, of course, the classic multi-tiered menu that you have as well, where you can go like in different sub-levels. And you have a top nav bar with sub-menus built from, so you show that in an own markup page in case you want to build your own little application. This is what that would look like. So you got this table up there. And it also does these things like this one. This drop down here, that costs you about 2 months of your life with Internet Explorer 6. Because trying to cover that one with a menu like this across all the permutation of Internet Explorer took us a lot of research to make it work. And with this menu, it comes for free for you. It's also all keyboard accessible, so if I can't use a mouse, I still can go through the menu myself, because I use a keyboard myself a lot, because I never use a mouse, I just use a laptop. And it's tested for you, and that's the widgets for you. All of them come with demos. Once you're happy with the demos, and you want to know more, it actually comes with full documentation as well. So let's go back to the menu homepage here. Oh, thought it said the connection manager. So if you go to the API documentation, you have a full Java doc style documentation in addition to the information on the first page that goes through it step by step, which is for humans and not Java developers. But this is where I always go when I get stuck, when I'm like, why is something not working in my example? Where is that going? This documentation is generated from the source code of YUI. So every time we fix it, the documentation automatically gets updated, which is another big problem with all of our code. If we actually write things and don't upgrade our systems, we have a problem there. And using YUI, it's really easy to build clever things for the web because it's tested, and actually we